Hello, everyone, and welcome to our very first live town hall of the Nevada legislative session. It is the 83rd legislative session. And even though we are only just, can you believe it, 16 days in, so much has happened so quickly, so fast. And we have a great deal to talk about with you tonight. My name is Michelle Mortensen. I am the communications director for the Nevada Republican Assembly Caucus. And we are so excited to have you here live with us on StreamYard, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and much, much more. I do want to let everyone know this evening that Assemblyman and Minority Leader Gregory Hafen will be joining us this evening in just a few moments. And I know you will definitely have questions for him. So if you have any questions that you would like to direct to Assemblyman Hafen, just put it in the comments. I will do my best to get to all comments as quickly as possible. But we've got the next hour with you dedicated to making sure that you know what's happening during the legislative session so you can be aware, you can help us in the hearing process, and much, much more. So now, without further ado, let's welcome in Assemblyman Gregory Hafen, the minority leader in the Assembly. Hi, Gregory. How are you this evening?
Good, Michelle. Hey, everyone. It's good to be virtually back home.
Absolutely. We did this a lot last session. We're going to do it even more this session because Assemblyman Hafen, why don't you kind of dive into this while we wait for questions to come in that they may have for you? Why is transparency so important to you this session? This is your first time as minority leader. You are leading the caucus. And I know that transparency, making sure the media is informed, making sure that the people are informed is really one of your top priorities.
Yeah, it's not just the transparency aspect, but also the involvement. I'm only one person. We will have about 1,200 bills that come in front of us, and so I need some help. I need your input. So if you see something, shoot me an email. I've got some great staff here, some good policy guys, and we love to hear the input. We love to see the feedback, so we know what we're doing is making the best decisions for you. As far as the transparency aspect, that is one of my key elements that I am pushing for this legislative session, is to be as transparent as humanly possible. I've actually been having media days once a week, and I invite all media to come into my office, either in person if they're here in Carson, or virtually like we're doing right now with the town hall, because it's just important to be able to explain to the public what we're doing, why we're here, and how we will help you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. We're already getting questions in. So I'm going to let you tackle these one by one. I'm going to go with Fred's question first. It's a long one. He says the state is owed over $1 billion in fees, fines, and taxes. I don't know where he got that specific number, but he says the agencies assessing these fees have little accountability for collection, and the comptroller's office has many excuses for non-performance. Why isn't the legislature insisting on collection?
So, Fred, good question. I'm not sure where the $1 billion number came from, but I do know that there was like 32 million owed in to the forestry for fires that we have been fighting either on federal land or in other states. And that is something that we are holding them accountable for, and we're saying, hey, why are you not billing for this? What do you need from us to be able to go after that? The controller has been in front of the budget committees that I sit on, and he's been asked those questions point blank, as well as the agencies directly, for the money that's owed to the state to bring those back home for in the case of the fire, for services that we have provided either to the federal government or to other states. And so I do know that that's in progress. They are working on that as soon as we called them out in the public meetings, and so that has started. We're looking at trying to collect as much as fast as we humanly possibly can.
Absolutely. Now, many people watching probably know that you represent parts of Nye County and parts of Clark County. And Joe has a question, particularly about a Nye County Assembly bill that I believe is getting a hearing on Thursday. He said, can you give us some updates on Assembly Bill 69 about a tax in Nye County? What can you tell us about that?
So Assembly Bill 69 is Nye County's bill draft that they have submitted. I believe it was voted on unanimously by the Board of County Commissioners. And what it is it's the current taxes on the books that go towards our law enforcement and our firefighters. I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but I believe it's 1/4% of the sales tax that goes directly to the sheriff's office and the fire department to be used for equipment, personnel, recruitment, and retention. That was established back in 2007 by the legislature, giving the county commission the ability to implement it. I believe it wasn't actually implemented until 2015. Um, so it's been on the books for quite some time. They are asking for the sunset provision to be removed. I've had conversations back and forth about whether or not we should be removing that, or maybe if we should extend the sunset with a vote, obviously, of 2/3 of the board to extend that. I think, as everybody knows, in Nye County, we struggle to hire and retain law enforcement and firefighters. I think law enforcement's a little bit worse, as the state has increased the pay, and Metro pays substantially more, and so we lose a lot of our brothers and sisters in blue over the hill into Vegas, or now to the state, because they just can't afford to pay them what the other agencies are paying. And so that's why the Board of County Commissioners is asking to keep this on the books. I think it was intended to sunset in 2027, and they are having a hearing on it on Thursday. And so I will be curious to see how those conversations go.
Yes, absolutely. All right, we got a question from Candace now. She asks, can you please direct the Department of Agriculture to join with states like Montana in fighting the mandatory EID tags for cattle? Is that something even within your wheelhouse as an assemblyman?
So I'm not familiar with the EID tags. I'm not quite sure what those are. I'm happy to look into that. I know the director. He is a cattleman. Our director of agriculture is JJ Gokatia. For those that don't know, he's the son of our former senator Gokatia. But I'm writing this down right now so I could follow up with him, and hopefully next week have an answer for you on where that is.
Perfect. Perfect. Now, we also have a question from Bob Reed, who I know you had the pleasure of meeting in
Bob.
January when we honored Mr. Nasser, one of the last living Holocaust survivors. And he has a great question because we discussed this a lot. Many great bills proposed by Republicans in our legislature die in the Democratic run committees. How can you and Republican counterparts get these bills on the floor for a vote? That's absolutely the $1,000,000 question, isn't it?
Well, I think it's the $1 billion question, not just
There
the
you
$1 million
go.
question. So we're working very hard. I I've submitted a couple of election integrity bills, and one of them I actually have gotten some traction and some really good feedback from across the aisle. I think the Secretary of State is actually going to come and support the bill. And I was told today that the ACLU is considering even supporting the bill. And basically, what that bill would do is say that our mail ballots cannot come out before our sample ballots. And those that live in Nye County will know that our actual mail ballots came out in September. Found out that there really is no limitation, that after the primary, they can send out your mail ballot for the general in July. And now we have months of voting, rather than back to what we used to have in election day. So what that'll do is it'll shorten the window of when mail ballots can go out, because they won't be able to go out before the sample ballots. And I think the sample ballots went out from the state 2, maybe 3 weeks prior to the actual election. So we're working hard to try to reach across the aisle and find areas where our good bills are being proposed, can move forward. The other thing that is happening is some of the good Republican bills, the Democrats like it so much that they're stealing the language and putting it in their bills. So that's one way of getting your bill heard, is just let a Democrat steal it and then watch it go across the finish line.
Yeah, we're not thrilled with that option, but yes, that is definitely an option. All right, Carol has a question for you. I'm going to put it up on the screen. It's another long one. How can Desert Research Institute be awarded $1.2 million for Nevada legislature approved cloud seeding, specifically at the base of the Ruby Mountains, without the taxpayers, community, and residents' knowledge until after the fact?
Well, that is why we're here today, is to try to get the message out on a lot of the things that we're doing here in Carson City, and start talking about these things. And I had heard a little bit about that earlier today. I didn't get the details, and but I was in a budget hearing, and one of my colleagues leaned over and was like, "Hey, did you hear about this?" And I hadn't, and so they were kind of giving me a brief update that DRI is looking to come back for funding for the cloud seeding programs. Um, so again, that's why we're here tonight, to try to get some of these messages out to people. And I'll be honest with you, things towards the end of session move extremely fast, and things get snuck into budgets here and there. Um, and I'm going to go back to Bob's question. One way I was able to successfully get some one of my bills through is I slid it into another Democrat bill during a Ways and Means hearing at 11 p.m. at night. It was actually the treasurer's bill. And we called him up in the middle of the night, woke him up, and says, "Hey, we're still working. Is it okay if Assemblyman Hafen sticks his bill into yours?" And he was like, "Sure. Can I go back to bed now?" And so we were very successful in that tactic. Just have to be sharp and stay on your toes, even if it is 11 o'clock at night and you're in the budget hearings.
So true, so true. All right, Laura just asked a question that I really like because I think from a consumer protection standpoint, we see these kind of concerns a great deal. And she wants to know, can you please help with crazy car and homeowners insurance rates? What can be done? There needs to be a cap. We do have some of the highest car insurance rates in the nation. We have some of the highest car registration in the nation. Is there anything that can be done with that, or is that just our burden to bear because we're an income tax free state?
Well, yes and no, Michelle. And that's a great question, because that is something that we have been discussing here in the legislative building. One of the problems that we continuously run into is, as Michelle stated, our car registration fees are higher than California and specifically Oregon. And so, what a lot of people do is they don't re register their vehicles in Nevada because it costs more money. They continue to register it in the other state to save some money, and that means that their car insurance is going through the other state, and that shrinks the pool of the individuals that are paying the car insurance in the state of Nevada, which increases the premiums. And so we've actually been looking at ways of cracking down on individuals that live in the state of Nevada permanently, but have their vehicles and their car registration um, in another state. And so that's one thing that's been discussed and that we're looking at. There isn't a bill yet out there for that, but really would want to try to give law enforcement the tools that they would need to, enforce people from being able to use car registrations in other states when they are actual citizens of this state.
Absolutely. Well, let's keep with the car theme for just 1 minute because, as you know, gas prices have been creeping up each and every single week, and they're expected to get even higher. Is there any appetite this session to look at pausing some of the gas tax for a little bit of relief when it comes to that? Is that even on the table?
Great question, Michelle. And I've actually been having conversations for a few months now with Director McClinton. He's the director over the Governor's Office of Energy. I don't know how many people know this, but with California and changing their CARB policies and implementing new, stricter mandates on fuel, it really affects Nevadans. And it's huge for us because the majority of our fuel comes from California and is piped in. With their changes, we have now watched Phillips 66 pull out of the state of California, which is about 5 to 10% of the state of California's fuel. And it's about 5% of Nevadans. And so, because of that, you're actually seeing um, Nevada's fuel prices go up a lot faster and higher than the other parts of the nation. And so it's been very, very concerning to me to watch that. Um, and so Director McClinton and I have been working on a couple of different proposals to try to go back at California and say, hey guys, you got to pull back. You can't be doing this. And I know President Trump is also looking at saying, hey, no, we can't have different kinds of fuel. You can't go and implement these. There has to be a federal standard, which really will help lower the cost. The other thing that I wanted to mention is last legislative session, Governor Lombardo had proposed to use some of the COVID ARPA funding to suspend the gas tax. Currently, the fuel tax is 54 cents a gallon between the federal portion and the state portion. I think that would have been a huge relief. I mean, 50 cents a gallon is a lot. I just filled up today up here in Carson City, and it was 3.50 a gallon for diesel. And I want to say it was pushing $4 up here in Carson City for regular unleaded. And I know that down south the prices are even higher right now. And so that would have been a huge benefit if Governor Lombardo could have convinced the Democrats to do that. But the Democrats, they refused to hear that proposal. A little disappointing, especially when we're looking at such high inflation. So we're working on it. And I do know that one of the inflation things that we've been talking about is eggs. The price of eggs have gotten out of control. We just today, JJ Gokachia, the director of the Department of Ag, signed an emergency order after we passed an emergency bill giving him the authority to bring additional eggs into the state. So I'm very hopeful that we're able to get those additional eggs into the state and start seeing the prices come down of eggs, because inflation is hurting everyone. Between fuel and groceries, it's difficult out there.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, there's a lot of questions, and I'm going to try to get to everyone. So, but Scott just asked a question, and it's involving education. And I do believe that Assemblyman Berger may have a bill addressing this situation, particularly with the schools in White Pine. But there we go. Scott says, is there any discussion for more permanent funding for rural school infrastructure, such as for White Pine, Humboldt, and Tonopah? And I do know Bert has that bill for the schools in I believe it's White Pine or Ely that need some help. But I know you're working a lot with things on improving infrastructure and education, and also not having just these one-time fundings, making sure that we're covering things. So how do you want to address those questions about rural education?
Yeah, no, great question. And like Michelle said, Bert Gurr has submitted the bill for White Pine. Well, he got a copy of it. He brought it to my office, I think either yesterday or today. And I was happy to co-sponsor it. And that would give Ely the funds that are needed to build a new school there. There is another funding mechanism that's on the books. We set aside a pot of money last legislative session. I don't remember exactly how much it was, that would allow a school district, at least a rural school district. I think Clark County and Washoe County were carved out of this, to go to the state. I want to say it was the state infrastructure bank, but don't hold it to me. We might have put it somewhere else, but they could basically go in, borrow the money at near zero interest rate to go out and build a new school and the facilities for the students. So that was something we did last session, and should be available now for the different school districts to go ahead and apply for. There was some repayment mechanism that had to go there, but because it was supposed to be a fund to perpetually be there to help build schools in the future.
Absolutely. All right. We have another question that I think you're going to absolutely love. We talk about Doge so often, and Mark has a question saying, what can we do to pursue a Doge type program for the state of Nevada? That sounds awesome, but also, is that even possible?
We are doing it already. We were doing it before Doge was Doge. So the governor's hired Mark Sanchez, or Chris Sanchez. Sorry, Chris, if you're listening, apologize. Mark was with the question. So Chris Sanchez is the head of business and industry. And he and his team for the last 2 years have been going through all of the various boards and commissions, and there are over 300 boards and commissions under the state umbrella. That doesn't even include the counties, the colleges, et cetera. And so what he and his team have done is they have taken that and they've made a proposal. It's only in a skeleton form right now. They're still working with the bill drafting team here in legal to reduce the size and the number of boards and commissions that we have. It's going to be a three-prong approach. But the first thing would start with the boards, reduce the number of boards, basically take 2/3 of them and eliminate them. They're looking at taking some of the occupational licenses that frankly, we're like one of only 2 states that have occupational licensing requirements for interior design to determine what color wall paint should be used in your house. And since we're one of only 2 states, I think we probably should just get rid of it. We probably don't need that requirement for somebody to be certified on it. Though I am colorblind, so I do appreciate anybody that can help me pick out paint to color my walls. But that is, and so again, he's been working on it for the last 2 years since the last legislative cycle. I was super excited when I met with him. Though I did tell him on several occasions, I appreciate all the work that you've done. You haven't gone far enough. Let's cut some more. And that's where the third prong will come in, and he will be looking at cutting a lot of the various subcommittees that are under different agencies. I think his first step is actually going to save the state about $20 million a year, which is great. I mean, this is something that was long overdue. And so we were doing Doge before Doge was a thing. And so I'm super proud of Nevada for being ahead of the game. But we're here. I'm looking forward to it. The bill's over on the Senate side. And so when it comes over here, I'm going to tell them cut some more. And let's
Slash
keep
it,
going.
slash it, slash it. You're our Ron Swanson. All right, I've got an interesting question from Leah here. And it's about the DMV. She says, I'm hearing the DMV is attaching our private medical information to our driver's licenses. If true, I see major backlash and lawsuits. Will you fight this? Is the DMV attaching our private medical information to our driver's license? And if they are, is that in case of a medical emergency, or what's the deal there?
So I haven't heard that they're attaching the private medical information to the driver's license. But the one thing I have heard is that if you've designated on your license that you're an organ donor, they make it very, very difficult for you to remove that later in the future. And so we are having conversations with the DMV to streamline removing that if you no longer want to be. Leah, I'm happy to follow up with the DMV and find out a little bit more on that if that is taking place. But as far as I know, it has to do with the organ donor portion, that at least the stuff that we're hearing up here. But I will definitely look into it. I'm writing it down right now.
All right, perfect. While you were writing that down, there were some follow-up questions to what is going on with the cloud seeding and the cattle, and they just kind of are basically saying they disagree with what Governor Lombardo did. They disagree with what Gokinchia is doing. When people have concerns about things like that have happened, what's the best way to go about issuing their dislike of what's happened? Carol said that the people who live at the base of the Ruby Mountains are very upset about this cloud seeding funding, and the the cattle question. They guess they disagree with Gokinchia. So if you have those types of issues, what should you do? Who do you need to go to? Do they need to go directly to you? Do they need to go to someone else? What's the best way to issue your concerns and grievances?
So I'm here in session right now. I'll be here for the next 104 days, Michelle. Is that about right?
Yeah, about right.
Or 103 in a few hours. But you're more than welcome to email me those concerns, and I can have staff reach out and follow up on all of those. Because I am here in the interim, you could feel free to reach out to your assemblyman or woman. but I'm here. I'm happy to help. And like I said, I have some of the best staff. I just absolutely love Tracy, who I'm sure is either at home watching or in the office next door listening. I'm not sure if she went home or not, but um, we are always happy to help and try to get some of the information over to the various agencies that are handling some of this.
All right, Joe had a question and it says, can you update us on AB 187? And do you support that bill? One thing I will let everyone know is there's some bills that we can rattle off AB 187 as easy as can be. And some of them, we have to look them up. And I think that's what Greg is doing right now. It looks like it's about relating to crimes prohibiting pornography involving minors. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, it talks about involving minors with AI altered images and penalties. Joe, I haven't read the language yet, and I literally this is the first time I pulled it up to look at it. Um, at the face value of what I'm just looking at, it looks like something that we should be looking to do. I know there's a number of AI bills, and this is something that's just not an acceptable practice for people to be doing. Um, Especially when it comes to minors. And so I don't know the details, so I can't tell you if I'm going to support the bill. I did see the bill sponsor is Assemblyman Joe Dahlia. He's a freshman Democrat. So before I commit to saying I support the language, I really need to dive into the bills. I see some penalties, one of which is life imprisonment. So again, I'd really have to dive into the language and see what it says. But on the face value of it, yeah, the concept is definitely something that we need to be discussing and we need to be working on. And again, I do know there are several AI bills similar to this nature that we will be addressing. Not all good. This is kind of more on the good topic, at least, or not so good topic, but good legislation that we should be looking at. So I will try to take a look at it, and I'll probably try to meet with Assemblyman Dahlia and have a conversation about exactly where he's headed with it.
Okay, and so we've gotten some clarity too. AB 20 is the one that they wanted to know about involving the DMV bill tracking your health records. It is just looking at it. AB 20 revises provisions relating to the Department of Motor Vehicles. It was introduced in November. It's with growth and infrastructure. It has a hearing and growth and infrastructure. It looks like tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. I'm not seeing much text here on Nellis to give you any more additional information, but this is really what these town halls are about. I think we were mentioning earlier, there's, I think, 1,200 bills already. Greg, is that correct? That have been introduced. So there are so
Not
many
quite.
bills.
Not
Not quite.
quite 1,200 that have been introduced yet, but there will be about 1,200 before it's all said and done. And I'm just looking at the little summary that I have of this, and it looks like they're trying to put symbols for medical conditions on there. I don't know exactly what kind of conditions they're trying to bring forward. Oh, here we go. Here's some notes from some of my colleagues. Because I don't sit on the growth and infrastructure bill, but it allows an individual to personalize that they have diabetes, epilepsy, or some sort of heart condition on their driver's license. It appears that their intent would be to allow the medical professionals to know that you have either diabetes or heart disease. I'll have to dive deeper into it to see what else is in there. And it's only an 8-page bill, so I can kind of look at it. Oh, it also talks about blindness, some allergies. But yeah, I'll look at it, Joe. And I think Leah was also the one asking about it. So
Right. And so I'm sorry if I misheard you or I just didn't hear what you're saying. Is it saying that it's an option if you want to opt into it, or is it saying it's a mandatory thing?
The notes from some of my colleagues doesn't say if it's mandatory. I don't know. I have to get into the actual bill language and dive
Yeah,
deeper
I
into it.
just wonder, that's something that maybe it sounds like those in the chat have they have quite a bit of dislike and disinterest in this, and that's why I wondered if it was they're going to do it mandatory for everybody, or if it's one of those things that you can opt in. We always prefer to opt in as opposed to opt out, but didn't know about that. And this is one of those bills that we're very grateful for you continuing to bring to our attention, because remember, there are hundreds and hundreds of bills. Assemblyman Hafen does not sit on every single committee. And that's why we have 120 days to get things done. So there is time to go over these bills. And you bringing them to our attention is also immensely helpful. So that's why we do this. That's why we're doing it every single week. And you can keep us informed. We can keep you informed. And it's a real good give and take. This is what communication is all about. And I just want to remind you, I don't believe there's anyone on the left who is offering opportunities like these where we can communicate directly with you. So it's all about transparency and having discussions. That's what we're about. We do have a question, Greg. I know you're kind of deep looking into it now. Into this
I know
one.
you guys got me interested. So I was looking at the little brief overview. It looked like it was they were making it mandatory for the DMV to offer it to individuals with these conditions. The conditions were already outlined in here, and it looks like it would allow for the DMV to adopt either a symbol, which was in there previously, or like a code. And I don't know what those are. And again, I have to look a lot deeper into this before I could, speak clearly. But it does look like it would be optional for the individual on whether or not they would want to do that, but mandatory for the DMV to offer it. But I will look into it because I am not a fan of telling the individual that they have to put that stuff out there.
Right.
So I will look at it, and hopefully by next week I'll have a good answer for you.
Okay, sounds great. Now we have a question relating to the bird flu. I know we talked about egg prices a minute ago, but I'll let you take a stab at this one if you want. Richard wants to know, are they killing too many egg laying chickens unnecessarily over the bird flu? All the birds I see are fine, not dying. What's going on with chickens and egg prices? They better not be putting mRNA in our chickens with those vaccines in Nevada. I mean, there was a decision to kill off so many birds, and that compounded the problem. And the reason why it's so much worse in Nevada is because of a bill from 2021 that just made it so much higher. Like the national average for eggs right now is something like 425. If you're lucky, you're going to find eggs for that price here in Nevada.
Oh no, I didn't find the eggs at that price last night at the grocery store. The cheapest I could find was $6.99 for eggs. But that was because we hadn't implemented the suspension of the rules yet. And so what I will say is, my understanding is that the Biden administration had actually ordered the killing of 100 million chickens, ballpark, due to the avian flu. I do question whether or not that was necessary, but that does directly affect the problem that, well, frankly, the Democrats created in requiring cage-free eggs, because it's the cage-free chickens that are highly susceptible to the flu, where I don't want to call them caged, but the ones that are in chicken coops, they're less likely to have interaction with the geese that are flying over that happen to have the flu. And so there's less probability of those chickens getting the illness. And so by opening this up to, caged eggs, hopefully we'll be able to get an influx of eggs into the state and help reduce the prices. Again, I'm not a vet. I can't really tell you if it was needed or not. It didn't seem very necessary to kill 100 million chickens to me. But I do know that the mandate that the Democrats put into law a few years back is exacerbating the issue here.
Absolutely. All right. This is a fun question from Mark. What can be done by the MV Republican caucus to work with the MV GOP to increase Republican voting participation? Donald Trump won Nevada, but lost Clark County.
All right. I'm gonna give a shout out to Joe and Chelsea because I know they're both on here. Nye County just totally kicked butt this last election cycle, and I know all of rural Nevada did in getting the voters out to vote for President Trump, which flipped this state and made it red. I know I've told you guys before, but I'm so proud of the work that you guys did. You worked extremely hard to make President Trump our president again. And yes, we need to do more in Clark County. Absolutely, we always do. But I'm going to give kudos where kudos is deserved. So, Joe, Chelsea, your team, everybody else that was out there knocking doors, getting people out to vote. Super proud of the work that you guys did. Just super ecstatic. And the other thing I want to mention is the Democrats put into place same day voter registration. And we had massive turnout in Nye County to the point that it almost overwhelmed the clerk. It didn't overwhelm her. She was able to get it done, but she was borderline overwhelmed because there were so many people that were so motivated to vote for President Trump this election in Nye County that they wanted to make sure they could vote. They got out, they registered to vote, and they voted on the same day. And good for you guys for all the hard work and everybody that did get out to vote. Set a new record in Nye County for the best turnout ever.
Absolutely, absolutely. We had great turnout. And that's why it's so important as well that we win more seats in the Assembly and the Senate in these next coming cycles, 2026, 2028, and 2030, because in 2031, we're going to be redistricting again. We have so many questions on the chat right now about redistricting and gerrymandering, and people want to know how we can change things. Of course, you tried to sue to get the awful gerrymandering that the Democrats did in the last session overturned so things could be more fair. But we can't stress this enough how important it is going to be come 2031 when we redistrict once again, correct?
Yeah, I mean it's super important, and so for me, this is a long-term strategy, a long-term plan to really get us in a position come 2031 when the new census numbers come out to ensure that we have fair maps. So I'm not even trying to like say that I want to rig it like the Democrats rigged it, so we have a super majority of Republicans. All I'm saying is we need to have fair maps. There needs to be fair and adequate representation. And had we had fair maps that were not gerrymandered in the Democrats' favor, well, frankly, I wouldn't be minority leader right now. I would have been the speaker because we beat the Democrats by thousands of votes collectively, as seen with President Trump winning overwhelmingly in the state of Nevada. And so that is how important it is for us to be in a good position come 2031. And we met our goals. We got out of the super minority in the Assembly. The Senate was successful in staying out of the super minority. And we have to build on that going forward. So when we get to 2031, we are in the best position possible to ensure that the voice of the people and the vote of the people is actually heard.
Absolutely. We have a question now from Terry. What can you share about the proposed Campus for Hope located on the land where the state of Nevada adult mental health facility is currently, and the matching 100 million from a private public partnership with another 33 million from the city for operating expenses? 2023 AB 528, Assemblyman Steve Yeager.
Is that Terry O'Rourke or Nicole O'Rourke?
Terry O'Rourke.
It's Terry. Oh, okay. What can I share about that Campus of Hope? There's been a lot of back and forth on the Campus of Hope. And to be honest, I don't know where that's at, other than I do know that there are a lot of the private investors that want to do some good and want to help. And there's been back and forth about whether this is the best location, whether the services that are being proposed are what should be proposed. I know Governor Lombardo had worked on this a lot and is really trying to make this come to fruition. but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. I have talked to Clark County about some of the things that they're doing in working with St. Jude's to help some of the foster children and some of the other good things that are being proposed on the campus of Hope. And so uh, I can say that there are a lot of good things that are being done right now until something can be built, but it's still in flux. There's still a lot of moving parts, and I can't give you a definitive answer of where that's headed or when that's headed. Um, I would think that we will by the end of session have a better direction, but I do think it's going to take a couple more months before we kind of hunker down and vet what's going to actually happen and where.
Absolutely. I want to talk a little bit now about some of the healthcare bills that the Assembly Republican Caucus is focused on. I know you did a hearing on a bill today that would help expand more care for mental health. I know you have another bill that's going to be presented next week that will also help expand care options in Nevada, particularly in rural Nevada. What can you tell us about the Republican plans right now to improve and expand healthcare in Nevada?
Well, this gets back to our Doge, right? Business and industry. Uh, and this is part of their third prong, and that is to expand reciprocity across state lines. So one of the bills that I've brought on behalf of the Southern Nevada Rural Regional Behavioral Health Board is to give reciprocity for counselors. Right now, if you're a counselor and you want to move into the state of Nevada, it is a 6 to 12 month process to get your license. And I don't know how many people out there in a working profession can afford to take 6 to 12 months off to relocate, especially if they have a family. It becomes very, very difficult. And so uh, I don't have the exact number, but there's about 35, 36 other states that have these reciprocity agreements across state lines. I believe there's 4 other states right now that are looking at doing exactly what I'm proposing to do and give the reciprocity across the state lines. And so we're looking at almost 40 states by the time that this year's over, if we're successful, that will have reciprocity across state lines for the counselors, which then helps bring more mental health providers to this state. We all know, Nevada, especially Southern Nevada, is a very transient area. People move in, people move out. And so, it's just one thing that we're trying to do. And it's not just that bill. I think the Democrat chair for Commerce and Labor has 3 reciprocity bills herself. I think former leader PK O'Neill has one himself that he's bringing, and I believe there's another one that would be an omnibus bill that will open it up to reciprocity across state lines for almost everything. And then I do know that I believe it's the Patient Protection Commission is looking at bringing the Nurses Compact, which would give nurses reciprocity across state lines. So huge things that we're trying to get accomplished to make it easier for people, cut some of the rules and regulations, the red tape, the entry to barrier that are just look, 6 to 12 months is excessive. It should not take that long if you have been fully vetted in another state, as long as those other states have similar, background checks and requirements. It shouldn't take months. It should take days. And so that is one of our priorities going into this session to cut the rules, cut the red tape, and get these professionals into this state quicker and get them to work.
Absolutely. I know another priority of the caucus and a priority of the governors is, of course, to focus on public safety. And I know this week, probably one of the biggest bills of the week came from Assemblyman Brian Hibbett's AB 111, which would make wrong way driving a criminal act because at the moment it's not a crime. How is the caucus, in addition to that bill, focusing on public safety?
I appreciate it. That was for those that watched the bill hearing, very, very sad, very emotional bill hearing. Very sad and tragic events have taken place um, because that wasn't a felony. It's just a simple misdemeanor, and so it's time. Back under former Governor Sisolak, crime was decriminalized, right? We reduced the penalties. We legalized things that we should have never legalized. We reduced penalties, um, and so it's time to say no more of this. We're cracking down on crime. Last session, we reduced the thresholds for theft. I personally think we didn't go far enough. Um, Michelle could probably correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think I voted for the bill because I went on the record saying this bill does not go far enough. We need to do more to crack down on crime.
Yeah.
And so Assemblyman Hibbett's bill is just the tip of the iceberg. I know it's been in the media and very sad stories that have been occurring. Um, but that is a priority of, and you know what? It's not just a priority of ours. This is what the state of Nevada has said when they elected a sheriff to be governor. They said we're tired of the leniencies on criminals. We have to crack down on crime. We want it. We want it now. Let's do it. And we're working on it. I know the governor's got a proposal in his bill. It should be coming out probably next week. I think it went to drafting today, actually. So I don't want to leak his ideas yet. I'm let him discuss his own bills, but it's coming. There are more bills that will be dropped to crack down on criminal activity.
Absolutely. Now, I know we're getting close to the last 15 minutes of our live town hall. So, if you do have any questions, be sure to put them in the chat so that we can get to those. But you just talked about how the governor's bills will probably start to be addressed next week. You have 120 days in this legislative session. Essentially, you've got about 4 months to get everything done. How does this all work? Like, how long do you have to present bills so that the folks at home kind of understand it doesn't all come out at the same time, correct?
No, they keep trickling out. So as a returning member of the body, we get pre-filed bills that we submit back in August. I believe my last one of my pre-files was on my desk today. And I was able to get that turned in. I think Tracy turned that in today. Tracy, if we haven't turned that in today, we'll turn it in tomorrow. And so there's a lot of those that have been worked on, over the summer into the fall and are ready to go. And that's why we had a hearing today. That was AB 31, one of the early ones. And so really those can be vetted, discussed. And then I have some that I haven't seen the language yet for. Those will be coming in the next couple of weeks. But the process is that, and I'll give you the short version. Bill gets introduced, goes to a hearing, gets a work session. If it's voted out of work session, it goes to the floor, and it has to be voted off of the floor of the House of Origin. So for me, out of the Assembly, and then sent to the Senate by day 60. So halfway through our session, it's got to be sent over to the other house. We normally work until midnight, 11:59, because that's our deadline for that day to get the bills over to the other house. And same with them, and they'll be sending the bills over that. And then the process starts all over again, and we start hearing the Senate bills the last 60 days, with some exceptions where rules get waived for certain bills. The governor's bills normally get a little bit more time in one house before they're sent over to the other house. And but that's the basic process of how that works.
Okay, we have another question right now from Leah, and I think we talked about this. I think you guys talked about this in caucus earlier today. She's saying, can you write a bill preventing illegal aliens being allowed to get driver's licenses, which allow them to vote? Um,
Whose bill was that? There was a bill that was floating around that was
yes,
being proposed, and there was to be. Did they have a hearing today on that, Michelle?
they did. Hold on, let me. I just need to scroll up. I'm so
Sorry,
sorry.
Leah. We
I
got a
believe I
lot
believe
going
it's
on.
AB 140, and there was a hearing. There will be a hearing on it tomorrow afternoon.
Oh, okay.
It is in government. So no, it's in growth and infrastructure. So, but this bill, I believe, Leah, just so that you know, that is not a bill preventing illegal aliens, AB 140. I do believe, and Greg, you can correct me if I'm wrong, AB 140 is actually helping encouraging that making it easier and letting it happen for instead of 4 years, 8 years, I believe.
I believe I haven't seen the bill, but we were discussing that today during caucus because it is coming up, and we're like, what is she trying to do? And just so you guys know, Assemblywoman Cecilia Gonzalez is bringing that bill forward. Feel free to email her tonight, tomorrow, before the hearing, and tell her how much you oppose this bill. And also email all the committee members. Let them know that you do not support this. You do not want this to move forward. Because inundate their email box. Copy me on the emails too while you're at it, because I'd love to see what you have to say. I haven't read the bill again because it's not going to one of my committees that I serve on, but we were discussing the overall concept, and I'm not sure there was some jokes that were probably had about the voting as well, but it's just one of those things that we have to bang our head against the wall, and we have to stand up and say, no, we're not doing this. So please let your voice be heard. Send emails to the committee members.
Growth and Infrastructure is the committee, just again. And then can they just go to the Nellis website to get everyone's email address, find out who's on Growth and Infrastructure so that you can email them? Is that the best way to do that?
Yeah, that's the easiest way. Just go to the Nevada Legislature's website. You can just Google that, and then there'll be a little area at the top, I think top left, that says Nellis, and that's our tracking system. You go into there, and you can find Growth and Infrastructure and all the committee members, and email all of them with just a click of the button. I say fairly simple because I use Nellis on a daily basis, but that is the easiest way to get a hold of them. You can actually submit comments directly to the committee. If you want to submit like a formal letter of opposition, unless somebody here wants to submit a letter of support for one of my bills, you're more than welcome to do that for my bills. Love all the letters of support and testimony and support that we can get. But yeah,
if you want to testify, maybe you're like, oh my gosh, I have such passion about this. I'm going to go to the hearing tomorrow and I want to voice my support against that. Are you doing that on YouTube? Do you have to go to the government building? Do you have to be there in Carson City? What do folks have to do?
Yes, yes, and yes.
Okay.
You have three different options. If you're up north, you can come over to Carson City. You can go to the committee room and provide testimony. If you want to go to the Vegas office, it's off of Amigo Drive, basically Warm Springs in the 215. And I don't know which committee hearing room it will be in Vegas, but it's streamed there. We allow for testimony there. Actually, the bill I was presenting, half of us were here in Carson City. The other half were down in the Las Vegas. They were the ones actually running the PowerPoint presentation. And then there's the option of always calling in. There's a phone number on the Nellis website where you can call in and provide testimony. All of our committee hearings, all of our floor sessions are streamed live on YouTube. Just go to the YouTube NV Ledge page, and you'll actually catch me in the hallways when I'm wandering around listening to committee hearings on YouTube. I just put my cell phone right here in my pocket, and I just walk around the building listening to other committee hearings because I want to know what's going on. And I can't watch all of the committee hearings at the same time or listen. There are captions. Assemblyman Hibbets and I were actually sitting in Health and Human Services while watching another committee hearing, reading the captions, and then we were kind of laughing at some of the captions because they weren't getting people's names exactly accurate. It's kind of funny to see what captions will auto-generate.
I also believe not all committees, but some natural resources for sure. If you are in the Elko area, the Great Basin Community College, I believe is what it's called, there is a way to watch and participate at that particular community college for natural resources. They may be doing it for all committees. I can follow up and get that information. It's in room 123 at the High Tech Center. At least that's where natural resources is done. I want to get
Michelle, on that note, could you also follow up? Great Basin has a campus in Pahrump. I'd be very curious to see if they're doing it at both locations. I know Elko is their main campus, and so they may not be doing it at their Pahrump campus. But when you're looking into that, I'd actually be really curious. I don't know that they're doing that, but they very well may be.
I don't know, but we can get that answer and we'll see if we can make that happen. Joe has a question for you. Are there any bills coming about funding more VOTEC programs in high schools and community colleges?
Um, so there's some new funding coming for education in general. Um, I had Joe. I haven't gone through the line item budgets for the education. We've been just having the big overview of the budget, which is help me, Michelle, $50 billion.
Yeah.
So there is some additional funding coming for um, K through 12. There's also some additional funding going for community colleges, and community colleges are going to get, at least the governor's proposal is the community colleges are going to end up getting um, a pretty big bump in their funding formula mechanism, where the universities are going to be held at, they're calling it a hold harmless because they're implementing a new funding formula and they're tweaking how things are getting funded. So the universities are kind of capped at where they were, but we're going to bring the community colleges, which will help for Great Basin College. I know they're trying to expand into some of the programs. So this will increase the funding for those campuses, Joe. We don't normally get to tell INCHE, Nevada System of Higher Education, exactly how to spend those funds and whether they have to go towards things. Every once in a while, we'll give them a one-shot appropriation to do, a building or to do this. But the funding is increasing for the community colleges, the universities. The last I saw was they were going to be held flat on a pure pupil funding, and then the K through 12 funding is increasing on a per pupil basis. So the funding's coming. It will depend on how the community colleges and the high schools end up utilizing those funds. So if any of our board of trustees are on listening, reach out to Joe and tell him how you plan on spending those additional funds, and be prepared in the committee hearing when you come forward. If Dr. Gent or any of the other superintendents to answer that question for us in hearing when your line item actually comes up.
Absolutely. All right. I know we're winding down, but Barbara asked about your favorite topic. Please work on voter integrity, no same day registration, voter ID now. I know you're working on all of that. Just here at the very end, do you want to give us a quick update on how you feel the Democrats who are in charge of our legislature at the moment, do you think they are going to give this a hearing? Because Nevadans overwhelmingly did vote for this.
73% of Nevadans have said we want voter ID. We want voter ID now. And this is not a joke. Last session, I brought the voter ID bill. I worked across the aisle to try to come up with language that I thought could get a hearing. And the response I got was I got laughed in my face and told me that the polling data that said 70 something percent wants voter ID was a joke. You know what? Those two legislators that laughed in my face are not back in Carson City this session. The voters spoke up and said, no more. We're not doing this. We want voter ID. I've brought the language back this session. I tweaked it to match the ballot initiative that the voters have overwhelmingly supported because I want the process to start now. I want us to put the rules and regulations into statute, into our codes, so they can be implemented, because it is going to pass next election cycle. It will be put into our constitution, and this is what the people want. We're here to do the will of the people. And also, I will say that I've had some really good conversations with the Secretary of State on my proposal to require sample ballots to come out before the mail ballots, and shrink the window of how long mail can be out there. And I know that there's a couple of other voter integrity bills that Assemblyman Gray, Assemblyman DeLong, Assemblywoman Dickman are all working on. And I think the Democrats have kind of heard that, hey guys, you better step up to the plate. You better allow these bills to get a hearing because that's what the people want. And so I'm hopeful that this session we can have those conversations. We can go into committee and we can debate these bills and we can bring good legislation to the people that the people have asked for.
Absolutely, because that's your job. You are here to do the will of the people, and that's why we are doing these town halls. And we do have the intent to do these every single Wednesday going forward. I know Assemblyman Berger is going to be doing some possibly on an alternative day because he does have natural resources on Wednesday. But this is what it's all about: keeping you informed. So I personally want to thank all of you who joined in today, especially everyone who joined in on Instagram. This is the very first time we've ever done one of these live on Instagram. Technology has made that possible. And we've had so many people joining on Instagram. So just want to give a shout out to the Instagram viewers. And I do hope that if you enjoyed this, as many of you in the chat have said that you have, you will join us again next Wednesday at 6 p.m. and every Wednesday thereafter, except maybe one, because we want to keep you informed, and this is the best way to learn about bills. This is one of the best and easiest ways to communicate with Assemblyman Hafen in real time. And I know he appreciates you being here, and I appreciate you being here, and thank you for everything. I just want to give you the last word, sir, because it's all about you.
No, it's an honor to serve you guys. I really appreciate the opportunity. Um, Michelle will tell you I have been working 12 to 16 hours every single day, except for yesterday. I only put in an 11-hour day yesterday and I didn't know what to do with myself. So I was really shocked. I did a little bit of my day job, but it is an absolute honor to do this and to do some things. And I think we're going to do some really good things this legislative session. So thank you. Thank you for your input. Thank you for your emails. Thank you for your text messages. If I haven't gotten back to you on a text message, I know I still have a few more to get through tonight. But thank you guys. Really appreciate everything, and looking forward to talking to you next week and communicating with you throughout the week.
Yeah, so absolutely tell your friends. And so many of you joined us on StreamYard. Those of you who joined us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and YouTube, thank you as well. Be sure to share this with other people next time. And we look forward to talking with you again very, very soon. Have a wonderful night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.